Hello, Namaste, Hare Krishna. So the subject we'd like to talk about today is Vedic Educational College. So what's that about? Well, what we call Krishna culture originally is called Vedic culture. So it's a Sanskrit word, Veda. Vedic is Sanskrit, it means knowledge. So it's a culture which is giving knowledge of every possible aspect of life, everything necessary for our human development, human advancement. And that's what attracted me to it. It's just so much knowledge on every possible subject, every question you have. There's a very logical, scientific answer from anything to do with food to astrology, spiritual, all useful kind of subjects for the mind, for the body, for the soul. And traditionally how that would work, that education, how it would be given, is in a very natural setting, like a forest. And it just so happens that that's the sort of atmosphere that we have at Krishna Sanctuary. There's native bush around us already, and there's a stream running down from the mountain that was already here. And on top of that, we've planted about 300 fruit and nut trees. So there's going to be, as time goes on, like an edible forest. The connection's not very good, the phone is telling me, so I'm just going to move a little bit. So yeah, in this forest we're in, we don't have very good internet connection. But that's alright, can't have everything. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of food as time goes on as well. And we're quite remote, so there's not many people close to us, living close to us, that we can pass on these teachings to, that we have learned. So what we need is some accommodation. So that's what we're in the process of creating now, some little cabins, little cottages, where people can come here if they're living far away and stay for any period of time, and we can pass on different aspects of the Vedic culture, from cooking, vegetarian, vegan cooking, gardening, yoga, meditation, Vedic philosophy, all different kind of teachings. Whatever we know, we'd love to pass it on, to share it for the benefit of everyone. So it's a beautiful culture, and it's just such a clever way of educating as in a forest environment, because there's no distractions. Whereas in the city environment, the mind tends to be very disturbed, and it's hard to really focus, hard to concentrate. If the mind is peaceful, then it makes it so much easier to absorb knowledge. So yeah, we have a lovely environment here, and that's one of the visions we have, is to develop like a Vedic college here. And that was one of the dreams of our spiritual teacher, was to have these Vedic colleges all around the world. So it would be a wonderful thing for me personally to help fulfill my Guru's desire in this way. And we've been given some opportunities in that area with the place that we live and the knowledge that we have. So that will be personally very satisfying, fulfilling to us to be able to do that. And so we look forward to keeping you all informed as time goes on, and when we are ready and we have the accommodation, sufficient accommodation, then we'll start to promote what different courses that we'll be offering here. And apart from that, even if people just want to stay for the weekend or something in their holidays, take a break from the city, then we would have some facility for things like that too, and people that want to do woofing. And like I mentioned, we have thousands of people walk past this property every year during the Te Araroa Trail, so those people can also come in and have a meal and stay the night like that, do some volunteering. So yeah, it gives us different opportunities if we have some accommodation. At the moment we're a bit limited without much accommodation, but hopefully that will be changing in the near future. So, and just a little broad outlook about what Vedic education consists of. It basically creates 4 different social divisions and 4 different spiritual divisions. So it educates in those different divisions. And it's a very natural system. These divisions are already there. So in the social division, that's how we make a living, this social division, how we make a living. So we can make a living in the area of being a leader, and that in Vedic culture is called being a Brahmana, a teacher. A teacher. You could say that a Brahmin is like a teacher, a guru. And then you have a leader, which is called a Kshatriya. So they are protecting the people, and when the people feel protected and safe, then they can do their work very peacefully, very happily, and they giving direction to the society. And then you have the producers, productive class. They're growing the crops and milking the cows and so forth. They're called Vaishyas. And then you have those that are assisting those other 3 groups. They're like labourers, labour class. And you already have that all around the world. You have labourers, you have producers, you have leaders and teachers, but it's not organised. It's not very well organised. It's like in chaos. And often people are doing a work, an activity that they don't like to do, and they're not good at doing. So Vedic culture organises it in such a way that people can find out what their nature is, what they're most suited to. And like I mentioned, very simply, it's finding out, what you're good at doing and what you like to do. So through the Vedic process, the nature of each individual person can be identified. And modern education is pretty stupid because it puts everyone in the same kind of education, and people are often very frustrated because they end up doing things they don't like to do and they're not good at doing. It treats everyone the same. It's very impersonal, whereas Vedic culture gives very personal education to each individual student according to what their specific nature is, and there's ways of finding out what that is. So that's the kind of education we'd like to do here, following that Vedic process of identifying the person's individual nature, and then teach them according to that in one of those categories, as that they're a teacher type of person, or a leader type, or a productive type, or a labourer type. And all those, doesn't matter what classification you fit in, there would be mutual respect. They're all necessary. in society. It's not that one class is better than another or worse than another. They're all, much needed and should be given respect. And it's compared those 4 different classes to just like 4 different parts of our body. Like the teacher class, the Brahmanas, are compared to the head. They're like the head of the social body, so just like we have a head, right? And the Kshatriyas, the leaders or the martial class, you could say, the politicians, so forth, the fighters, warriors, they're like the arms of society. And just like the arm protects the body. And the productive class, the Vaishyas, they're compared to the stomach of the social body. So they, just like the stomach feeds the body, so the Vaishyas, the producers, feed society. And the labourers, they're compared to the legs of society. They get work done, so that's very important. So, and it's not that I love my head, but I don't love my arms, or I don't love my legs. No, of course. You love your toes right up to your head. You respect, just like we love and respect all different parts of the body. It's the same with the society, that everyone is very important. But there are different roles there, and they need to be done. It's like if you didn't have arms, how would you go? Wouldn't go very well. If you didn't have a stomach, or if you didn't have legs, things wouldn't go well. And if you didn't have a head, well, you're gone, So the head, comparatively, the head is definitely essential. You need a head. So like society needs guidance, and that's the most, probably, the most lacking part of society, modern society, is that we don't have that, head of, persons that are very intelligent and have a lot of knowledge, and they give direction to all the rest of us. How to progress, where to go, what to do, what's the purpose of life. Like when I was young, I was so frustrated, so confused. I didn't know who am I and why am I here and what's the purpose of life and why is there so much suffering and is there a solution? It's just chaos going around in circles. So that's important to have, enlightened teachers that can give us persons in ignorance. Because let's face it, we're all born ignorant, right? So that's why we need education. So when we're young, right, we go to school because we're ignorant and we learn. But what they're teaching us is not everything we need to know. Whereas in the Vedic culture, it teaches us everything we need to know. And often we get taught nowadays a lot of stuff that we don't need to know. So Vedic culture doesn't teach us unnecessary stuff. It just teaches us all the essential things. And a lot of those things will be to do with values, to have the right values and morals. Not just to learn, to be educated in how to make money and how to build a car and how to run a computer and everything. Just things, knowing things, but more about our own personal development and developing character and the right values, like I was saying. Like, for example, Vedic education begins with learning humility. That's the foundation. And then, just some little tips, little hints of what it's about. And then tolerance, compassion, forgiveness, patience, enthusiasm. These are very essential things. Determination, control of the mind, control of the senses. These are so fundamental for what it means to be a human being, which often gets left out. And if you leave that out from a human being's education, you don't have a human being. You have basically an animal on 2 legs. So Vedic culture calls that a dvipad pashu, that we're a 2-legged animal, which is tragic, and a great loss of potential, because potentially we can become such a valuable contribution for the society and also be very peaceful and prosperous like that. So Vedic culture helps us to reach our full potential as a real human being, and not to waste this precious life, which is very short. It's very temporary. So we only have it for a short time, so we should make the most of it. So Vedic culture invests the best education into each human being so that it will be good for the individual and good for everyone as a whole. And then it has 4 spiritual divisions. So the first part of our life is student life, and that's called in Sanskrit brahmachari. That's called student life. So it organizes, how we can get the best education as a student. And in that education, the student would live with the teacher, and the teacher was called a guru. So the guru is like I said, a brahmana teacher. So that the student with the brahmachari would live with the brahmana, with the teacher, and the teaching would be, a lot of it, by example. So by the teacher's example, the student is observing the teacher, is living with the teacher, observing how the teacher acts and talks and walks and eats and everything. And you learn so much from that, seeing the example. Just like when we were kids, right? What was the main way we learnt stuff when we were kids? Is the example of our parents, mainly. And that's how we learnt. It's not just by people telling us what to do. And as you might have realised in the modern day age, that generally we're not very humble, isn't it? It's called Kali Yuga in Sanskrit, this age of Kali means the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So, and that's also symptomized by we're not very humble, we're quite proud, and generally people don't like to be told what to do. We don't learn things so well just by an authority figure, bossing us around and telling us something. But what we do learn very well from is seeing someone doing some wonderful things, some very good example they're setting. And like I said, if they're very humble and they're very tolerant, they're very compassionate, they're very patient, then we get inspired by that. So we get inspired by seeing, perfect examples, good examples. So this is a lot of benefit in the student living with the teacher. And it can be a lot more progressive teaching, through that kind of process, rather than just have, some authorities, telling us things all the time. We might rebel against that, So the first stage is the student stage, brahmachari, and then the student may decide at a certain point to get married. So that's the next stage. It doesn't have to, but often that happens, of course. So the next stage is married life, family life, and that's called grihasta. But there's a spiritual centre to all these different stages of life. When one's a student, there's a spiritual centre. When they're a family person, there's a spiritual focus, a spiritual centre, like that. So this is completely different than like a modern student or a modern family person, which often doesn't have that spiritual foundation. So this is, like I said, the framework is already there in society, but it's in chaos, We don't have that spiritual foundation. So Vedic culture has that there. And that makes it perfect student life, perfect family life. And then often when the kids are grown up, you've gone through family life, and then you're ready to retire. So that's retired life is the third stage, and that's called vanaprastha. When the kids are grown up, they've got their own families, they're well established, they don't really need you around anymore, and then you can go on and do further things, and that would be taught what those further things are. And then the final stage is called renounced life. So you're probably familiar with the first three, student, family, and retired, but what's renounced about? So that's called sannyas. So that means completely at a stage of complete detachment from all material things. And when one is completely a person has a spiritual focus completely. And why should we have a spiritual focus at the end part of our life? Because what comes after the end of life, that's called death. So to prepare for death. So before death comes, that the soul is detached from all this materialistic fluff around us, which is all temporary stuff, and we have to leave whether we like it sooner or later. So the Vedic culture prepares us for that final point. You know, that old age comes, disease comes, and then death comes. So before death comes, that you have the training and everything, and the right consciousness to be able to face that, you know, a very fearful situation for most people. Don't even want to think about death because it's so fearful, but takes away all that fear, takes away all that trauma and, you know, and that ignorance, and helps us prepare. It sees it like a stepping stone, you know, so you learn about that there's a soul that's eternal, it doesn't die when the body dies, and about reincarnation and so many things. So there's so much there in the Vedic culture I didn't find out about any of that when I was getting educated about the soul or reincarnation, karma, and so forth. But all these things which are real are a basic part of Vedic culture. Anyway, that's just a little synopsis of Vedic culture, which in Sanskrit is called Varna Ashrama Dharma. Varna Ashram Dharma. So Varna means the 4 social divisions, Ashrama means the 4 spiritual divisions, and Dharma means duty, occupational duty. So it gives us different duties for all these different phases of life, stages of life, you know, depending on our particular situation. We have different duties. So the duties of a teacher are different than the duties of a warrior, are different than the duties of a producer. And the duties of a student are different than the duties of a family person or a retired person like that. So we have different duties depending on what our occupations are and what stage of life we're at like that. It's really fascinating, really fascinating. So we'd love to share that with whoever's interested. And when we have some accommodation, then we'll be promoting that, advertising that, and whoever wants can get the education. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.